The worst part? They clapped. Not for me. For her. And I was the one holding the damn microphone. It was supposed to be a short speech. A harmless little toast during my brother's engagement dinner. Just a few words to honor him and his fiancée, who I barely knew but had stalked on Instagram enough to fake sincerity. The room was warm, filled with candlelight and catered chicken parmesan, and every single person was looking at me. Except her. She was looking at her phone. I tried not to let it throw me. I cleared my throat and kept talking. Something about family. Something about loyalty. I even made a joke, something corny about how my brother used to think romance was a brand of chewing gum. A few polite laughs. And then, just as I was about to wrap it up, she stood up. Without warning. She didn't say, "Excuse me." She didn't wait for applause. She just rose, wine glass in hand, smile on her face, and said, "Actually, if I may add something." The room shifted. Attention swiveled. Even I turned and looked at her like I had no idea who she was. Rivka, my wife. She wasn't supposed to speak. She wasn't even supposed to be here. She told me she was working late. She showed up 40 minutes in, kissed me on the cheek like I was her awkward cousin, and hadn't said a word until now. "First of all," she said sweetly, "can we all just agree that Sebastian's speech was adorable?" People laughed. Not polite laughter this time. Real chuckles. I blinked. "And second," she continued, "if you really want to talk about loyalty and family, maybe you should ask Sebastian how many times he forgets his own anniversary, or how he thinks buying a frozen cheesecake counts as a gift." More laughter. More confused glances. My face burned. I tried to smile. My brother was laughing. His fiancée looked uncomfortable. I felt like I was underwater. Rivka raised her glass. "But honestly, I'm grateful. Because watching you 2-inch," she pointed to my brother and his fiancée, "reminds me of what real love could look like. If we stop settling." That's when they clapped. I wish I could say I stormed out. I wish I had some dignity left to salvage. But I just stood there, holding the mic like an idiot, wondering if anyone else noticed that my wife had just eulogized our marriage in front of 32 people. She sat down, took a sip of wine, smiled at me like nothing happened, and I gave a little bow. Like I deserved it. That was 2 weeks ago. Tonight, she's texting me. "Please, can I come over? I messed up. I need you." But I haven't responded. Not yet. Because there's something else you need to know first. I didn't respond to her text right away. I stared at it for 17 minutes. Yes, I counted, watching the 3 dots appear, disappear, and then reappear again. "Please, can I come over? I messed up. I need you." That was the first one. The second came after midnight. I know I crossed a line. I'll do anything to fix it. The third? It was just Sebastian. Like I was the one who ghosted her at a public event. Here's what most people don't understand. When someone humiliates you in public, it doesn't just hurt in the moment. It echoes. It keeps playing on a loop in your head at 2 a.m. While you're brushing your teeth, while you're microwaving leftover pasta, while you're pretending to listen to podcasts. And it wasn't just what she said at the dinner. It was how easily she said it. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like she'd wanted to say it for a while and finally found the perfect stage. But let me rewind a bit, because there's something I didn't tell you. After her toast, I didn't confront her. I didn't demand an apology. I didn't even raise my voice in the car ride home. I drove us back in silence while she scrolled through her phone and occasionally laughed at memes. That night, I slept on the couch, not because we argued, but because she didn't even notice I wasn't next to her. The next morning, she asked if I could move my coffee mug because it was ruining the aesthetic of her new marble tray. 2 days later, she posted a photo from the dinner. A group shot. Everyone smiling. I was cropped out. Literally. You could see the edge of my shoulder, cut off like a discarded detail. The caption? "Find your light and live in it." With a sparkles emoji. That same evening, I got a call from my mom. She asked if we were okay. Apparently, one of her friends had seen Rivka's Instagram post and called her in a panic, thinking we were divorcing. I said, "We're fine," and hung up before I could start crying into the couch cushion again. And now, just a few days later, she's texting me, crying, saying she needs me, saying she loves me. You might think I should be happy, that this is the moment the story turns around. But here's the thing. Rivka never says, "I love you," when she's sober. I checked the time. 12:38 a.m. I imagined her sitting in her car outside my apartment, knees pulled up, mascara smudged like in the movies. But this isn't a movie. This is my life. And in my life, people don't cry from love. They cry from regret, from damage, from getting caught being cruel. So I did something I probably shouldn't have. I texted back, "You can come over, but don't say anything unless it's the truth." She read it instantly. And 3 minutes later, I heard her knock. The knock wasn't loud, just two soft taps, like she didn't want the building to hear. I stared at the door for a moment, half hoping it was someone else, some delivery mistake, or a drunk neighbor who pressed the wrong buzzer. But I knew it was her. Somehow, I'd been sensing her presence all night, like a migraine you feel coming hours before it strikes. I walked to the door slower than I should have. Not out of hesitation, out of pettiness. If she wanted forgiveness, she could wait 10 more seconds for it. When I opened it, there she was. Rivka. No mascara trails, no trembling lips, no grand emotional collapse like in the movies. No, she looked composed. Too composed. She wore one of those oversized sweaters she knew I liked, the gray one with the slouchy sleeves, and held a paper bag of pastries from that 24-hour cafe downtown. Like this was a casual drop-in visit after a friendly misunderstanding. She even smiled. "I brought those pistachio croissants you like," she said, lifting the bag slightly, as if that somehow leveled the emotional damage she'd done. I didn't say a word, just stepped aside and let her in. She walked through the apartment like she still lived there, noticed that the plant near the window had died, commented on how the couch was moved, asked if I'd been cooking again. I watched her take in all the details, like a landlord checking on her old property. She set the pastries on the kitchen counter and poured herself a glass of water. Still, I didn't speak. It wasn't until she sat on the edge of the couch, the same couch where I'd spent 3 nights thinking about how easily she erased me from her world, that she finally looked serious. "Look," she began, placing the glass down with a soft thud. "I know I messed up. I was trying to be funny, and it got out of hand. People were drinking. I thought you'd laugh with me. Like everyone else did." I asked, my voice cracking halfway through. Her lips pressed together. "No. I mean, maybe. But I didn't mean it how it sounded. You said I was comfortable, Rivka, like a pair of worn-out slippers. You said I settled, and then toasted to a better life." She didn't respond, just stared at the floor. "You humiliated me," I said louder now. "In front of my family. In front of strangers. You made me look like a man who doesn't even know he's being pitted." Still nothing. Then she whispered, "You were never supposed to hear that part." I froze. "What?" Rivka's face paled. She looked up suddenly, eyes wide, like a child who just realized she said something she shouldn't have. "I mean, I didn't mean you, I meant. I was trying to say I've been scared. About me. About how I'm living a life I didn't plan. I wasn't blaming you. I was blaming myself." It was the worst kind of lie. The one that wears just enough truth to feel believable. I should have asked her to leave right then. But I didn't. I let her keep talking. And what she said next, it made everything worse. Because instead of apologizing for hurting me, she told me what she'd been doing the night before the engagement dinner. She didn't say it right away. She hesitated like the truth was a fragile object she wasn't sure she wanted to hand over yet. Her eyes flicked around the room, scanning for something safe to land on. An excuse, a distraction, a reason to stop. But I just stood there, waiting, and the longer I said nothing, the faster her words seemed to tumble out of her. "The night before the dinner," she started, "I didn't have to work late. I already knew that. I'd seen the email pop up on her laptop while she was in the shower. Her boss had canceled the Thursday client pitch. But I didn't bring it up then. I told myself I was being paranoid. That trust meant not cross-examining your wife like a suspect every time something didn't add up. I want to see someone," she said. "Not like, well, not exactly like that. It wasn't planned. It just happened." That phrase, "it just happened," it hit like a brick. Always the same phrase cheaters use in movies and late-night confession threads. Like people just trip and fall into betrayal. Like intimacy was a slippery floor and they forgot to wear proper shoes. My hands felt cold. I didn't sit. I couldn't. "Who?" I asked. But I already had a name in mind. Landon. Or Lachlan. Or whatever stupid craft beer-scented man-child she was laughing with at that dinner. The one with the sleeves rolled just high enough to show off tattoos designed to look effortless. The one she leaned into like gravity pulled her harder when he spoke. Rivka didn't answer right away. Her fingers curled into the hem of her sweater. She looked younger when she was nervous. Less sharp. Less cruel. "Do you remember Eric?" she asked finally. I blinked. Eric? The name didn't match the image I was holding in my head. My ex. From college, she added. The one who moved to Oregon after the accident. That Eric. Tall. Blonde. Mysteriously vegan. A man whose entire personality seemed designed to make you feel like you were doing everything wrong. Eating the wrong food. Drinking the wrong coffee. Living the wrong life. I had seen one photo of him, years ago, in a climbing harness, smiling like a man who had never felt consequences. Rivka once told me she thought he might have been the love of her life in another timeline. So you saw him? I asked. She nodded slowly. It wasn't supposed to be anything. Just coffee. He was in town. He DM'd me last week. I didn't even reply at first. But then, she trailed off. I didn't push. I didn't need to. I could see it all over her. Her eyes. Her voice. The way she kept calling it not planned. I kissed him, she whispered. That's all. I swear, Seb. It was just a kiss. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain was trying to keep me from screaming. A kiss. As if betrayal only counts if clothing is removed. As if erasing years of trust and history and love could be measured in lip contact. I turned my back to her. I don't even care about the kiss, I said. Silence. I care that you didn't tell me before the dinner. Before you stood up and humiliated me. You were already carrying it. You'd already done it. And you looked me in the face like nothing happened. I panicked, she said. I wanted to pretend it didn't mean anything. I wanted to feel something that wasn't numb. I didn't know what I was doing anymore. You don't look at me the way you used to. I thought maybe he would. That last line. It hit different. I thought maybe he would. And suddenly it made sense. Her distant eyes. The performance at the dinner. The sudden need to reclaim some imaginary spotlight. She wasn't just trying to make me feel small. She was trying to feel seen. I should go, she said quietly. I needed you to know. She stood up, grabbed her phone, and walked to the door. But before she opened it, she turned around and said something that froze me in place. I still love you, Sebastian. That never stopped. I don't know if that's enough anymore. And then she left. I didn't move for almost an hour after she walked out. The air in the apartment felt thinner, like her presence had soaked up the oxygen and taken it with her. The light from the hallway spilled across the floor in a pale yellow slash, and I just stood there in it, staring at the door, as if maybe she'd come back and say, just kidding. I made it all up. I wanted to see if you'd fight for me. But she didn't come back. I walked to the kitchen without thinking and opened the bag of pastries she'd brought. The pistachio croissants. They were cold now. I took a bite out of one, hated the taste instantly, and threw it in the sink like it had betrayed me too. Then I sat down on the floor. Not the couch. Not a chair. The floor. Because it felt like the only surface that matched how low everything had fallen. You know what's funny? I kept checking my phone. Like maybe there'd be another text. One more apology. One more attempt to explain how the kiss didn't mean anything. I wanted her to beg. To break. To unravel in front of me the way I'd been unraveling since that damn dinner. But there was nothing. So I opened Instagram. Not hers. His. Eric. I'd never followed him, but his profile was public. It was full of the usual nonsense. Mountains, smoothies, blurry sunsets with captions like, "The climb is the reward." I hated him instantly. And not just for the kiss. Not just for the history. I hated him because he looked so free. Like he'd never had to apologize for anything. Like no one had ever cut him with a sentence in front of a room full of people and left him bleeding invisibly for days. Then I did something worse. I opened Rivka's old emails. I know. I shouldn't have. It was a leftover Gmail login on the browser, and she hadn't logged out from months ago. I'd never touched it before. I used to think that was something to be proud of. But now, I needed to know. And there it was. A thread. Catching up hot beverage from Eric, dated 2 weeks ago. First message innocent enough. Hey, heard you were still in Chicago. I'm in town for a bit. Want to grab a drink? No pressure. Her response had 3 heart emojis. 3. They met up twice. Once for coffee. Once for a quick walk by the lake. I don't know why that one hit harder. The walk. Maybe because that used to be our thing. Every Sunday, no matter the weather. We'd walk along the lake trail, sometimes in silence, sometimes arguing, but always together. The idea that she took that routine and offered it to someone else, someone who once broke her heart in college and still managed to wiggle his way back into it, felt worse than any physical betrayal. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Around 3:20 a.m., I went outside in my slippers and walked half a block just to feel cold air on my face. The streets were empty, except for one old man walking his dog and the occasional blur of a passing car. I sat on the curb and cried harder than I have in years. Ugly, messy, gasping sobs. Not because of the kiss. Not because of the speech. Because deep down, I started asking myself the question no one ever wants to say out loud. What if she was right? What if I had become comfortable? Forgettable? Safe to the point of invisibility? What if the man she humiliated wasn't some accidental casualty of a bad night, but the exact man I'd let myself become? And that question, it didn't just haunt me. It started to change me. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I told them I had food poisoning, which wasn't entirely a lie. My stomach had been in knots for days. It felt like I'd swallowed a battery, and the acid was leaking into every part of me. I stayed in bed until noon, not sleeping, just lying there, staring at the ceiling and thinking about how quiet the apartment had become. It used to be filled with her noise, her humming, her constant voice memos, her dramatic sighs over emails. Now, even the silence sounded like her. But something had shifted. It wasn't rage. I'm not built for rage. I'm too soft for it. Too whiny, as she used to say during fights. You're not angry, Seb. You're disappointed. You sound like a sad middle school teacher. I'd always hated that comparison. But now I understood what she meant. Because I didn't want revenge. I wanted a reaction. So I did something I'm not proud of. I went to her office. It was a sleek glass building downtown, the kind that always smells faintly of lavender and printer toner. I waited until lunch, walked straight into the lobby like I belonged there, and asked for her by name. The receptionist gave me a look, half surprised, half suspicious, but eventually called upstairs. She's in a client meeting, she said. Would you like to leave a message? No, I said. I'll wait. She offered me a seat. I declined and just stood near the elevator, pretending to scroll through my phone. My heart was pounding. I didn't even know what I was going to say if she came down. I just wanted her to see me, messy, unshaven, uninvited. I wanted her to feel unsettled, like she'd broken something that couldn't be boxed back into apology. But she never came. After 20 minutes, the receptionist got another call. She put the phone down and said, "She asked me to tell you she's not available today." She asked me to tell you. Not even the decency to text me herself. That's when I realized she probably wasn't in a meeting at all. She was avoiding me. She was upstairs, maybe laughing with coworkers, maybe pretending I didn't exist, again. That's when something inside me cracked. I left the building and walked. I don't even remember how far. At some point, I ended up near the lake. I saw the bench where we used to sit and watch people rollerblade by. Once, 2 years ago, we saw a couple get engaged right there on that trail. Rivka said, "Don't ever do anything public like that, or I'll say no just to teach you a lesson." I laughed then. Now it felt like a warning I'd missed. By the time I got home, I felt hollow. And that's when I did something worse than showing up at her job. I messaged Eric. I didn't know what I was expecting. Maybe some macho dismissal. Maybe silence. But he replied, quickly, "Hey man, not sure what this is about. Rivka told me you two are going through stuff. Hope everything works out." Hope everything works out. As if he hadn't inserted himself into our lives like a virus. As if he hadn't been walking beside her, brushing her hand, laughing into her ear, stealing parts of her that were supposed to be mine. I stared at his message for a long time. Then I typed something back and deleted it. Then typed again. I said, "She told me everything. I just thought you should know she cried the whole night after she kissed you. She said it was a mistake. She said she still loved me." His reply took longer. "Finally, that's between you two. Don't drag me into it again." Again. The words slammed into my chest like a truck. They'd talked since. After her apology. After she cried in my apartment and begged for a second chance. She was still talking to him. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled. A strange, terrifying kind of smile. Because suddenly I knew exactly what I had to do next. I didn't sleep that night either, but I wasn't crying anymore. I was focused. And I don't mean in some cinematic, revenge movie way. I didn't suddenly become confident or charming or cold. I was still me, still Sebastian, still pathetic, still second-guessing every move I made. But there was something else now, something sharper. Like my pain had finally burned away all the fog, and what was left was a kind of clarity I'd never felt before. Not confidence, just purpose. It started with a spreadsheet. That sounds ridiculous, I know. But I opened my laptop and created a spreadsheet titled Everything. I listed every moment I'd compromised, every apology I'd made when I wasn't wrong, every dream I'd shelved for her comfort. Column A, the year. Column B, what I gave up. Column C, what she gave in return. Some rows were small, like when she made me cancel my hiking trip with Mark because she said the woods made her nervous. Others were bigger, like when I turned down a job offer in another city because she didn't want to leave her book club. Line after line, the pattern unfolded. Me, adjusting, shrinking, softening. Her, performing, demanding, retreating. And still, I had begged her to stay. By the time the sun came up, I had pages of notes, messages, quotes from her emails and texts. I wasn't building a case to confront her with. I wasn't even planning to show her. I just needed to remember the truth, in writing, because her reality was always louder than mine. Her words always rewrote history. But this time, I was the historian. Later that day, I did something bold. Not flashy, not dramatic, just uncharacteristic. I emailed her boss. Not to sabotage her. No, that would be easy. I know things about Rivka she thinks I've forgotten. The performance review she doctored, the client file she took credit for, the project lead she flirted with because she thought it gave her leverage. But I wasn't there to destroy her. I was there to remind her. I asked him for a meeting. I said I was thinking of applying to a role at the company. It was a long shot. I had no real business background, but I knew how to present myself well enough on paper. And he remembered me. We'd met at the Christmas party last year. He liked me, said I had good energy. He agreed to meet for coffee. And here's the part that might sound cruel, but I swear it wasn't. I dressed the best I've looked in months. Pressed shirt, fresh haircut, no visible desperation, just calm, collected energy. And I told him I admired the company's structure, its vision, and its leadership. I was lying, of course. I didn't care about any of that. I just needed her world to feel me knocking on its door. He said he'd keep me in mind. And then, after we shook hands and he left, I walked 3 blocks to her office and sat across the street on a bench with a coffee. I didn't try to go inside. I didn't send a text. I just watched the windows. She wouldn't see me, not from that high up. But I saw her. Not literally. I mean, I saw her life. Her sleek little fortress of glass and emails and curated smiles. The life she built like a castle where I only lived as a ghost. I realized something important as I sat there in the early evening chill. She had moved on with control. The speech. The kiss. The "I still love you" line. All of it. Those weren't mistakes. They were choreographed collapses. She wanted me to feel like the one who failed. Like she was generous for giving me one last apology. But she forgot who I used to be. Before I softened. Before I bent. Before I became the man who carried her pain like it was rent for living in her world. That night, when I got home, she finally called. No text. No emoji. A real call. I let it ring 3 times. Then I picked up. "Sebastian," she said, her voice low. Did you talk to Graham today?" "Yeah," I said casually. "Nice guy." Silence. Heavy. Thick. "What are you doing?" she asked. And for the first time in this entire story, I smiled without guilt. I said, "Reminding you I still exist." Then I hung up. And I think that was the first time she felt even a fraction of the humiliation I've been carrying for weeks. But don't worry. I'm not done yet. She didn't call again after that night. No angry texts. No follow-up emails. Nothing. Just silence. Which, at first, felt like a punishment. Like I'd crossed some final line, and now she was gone for good. And honestly, for the first couple of days, I panicked. I kept checking my phone, refreshing her Instagram like a pathetic reflex. She hadn't posted anything new, but that made it worse. I imagined a million scenarios. She and Eric back together, her bad-mouthing me to her friends, her crafting a version of the story where I was the villain. But then something strange happened. I got tired. Not just physically, though I hadn't slept properly in weeks, but emotionally. I got tired of dragging her shadow through my days. I got tired of the obsession, the rewinds, the second-guessing. And one morning, I woke up, made coffee, sat at the window, and just stopped waiting. That's when things started to shift. It wasn't dramatic. There was no sudden glow-up montage. I didn't get a six-pack or write a best-selling memoir. But I started reclaiming the parts of myself that I hadn't touched in years. I reached out to old friends, People I'd ghosted when I was too busy orbiting Rivka's moods. I went hiking for the first time in over a year. Alone, no one to impress, no one to cancel on me halfway there. I applied to a remote design gig I thought I wasn't good enough for, and got it. And most importantly, I stopped needing her to see any of it. It's wild how much space opens up when someone stops living rent-free in your head. I no longer replayed the dinner speech. I no longer pictured Eric's smug little smile. I even started sleeping in the middle of the bed again. You know how stupid that sounds. Sleeping in the middle. But that felt like a win. Like my body finally believed she was gone. 3 weeks later, I saw her. It was accidental. Grocery store. She looked surprised. She reached for almond milk at the same time I did. We laughed, awkwardly. She looked good, sharp, polished, but tired. She asked how I was. I told her the truth. I'm getting better. She nodded, bit her lip like she was about to say something meaningful. Then just said, "I'm glad," and turned away. And that was it. No tears. No final apology. No big closure speech. But I didn't need one anymore. Because here's the truth I learned the hard way. Sometimes, the person who breaks you is never trying to hurt you. They were just too broken to see what they were holding. And sometimes, the apology never comes. You just get to live without it. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not waiting for revenge. I don't want her back. I want me back. And for the first time in a long time, I think I've got him.